that all men have inalienable rights to think freely, to talk freely, to write freely their own opinions, and to counter or utter or write upon the opinions of others.
This is from the Creed of the Church of Scientology. Hey everybody, I'm Holly, aka the ScientoloGeek, and I want to welcome you all to episode number 46 of going over the data series. Today we are picking up part 2 of the policy letter that we started last time, and it seems like there's only 3 pages left after this, so we'll be able to get this whole thing done by the next video. Again, this whole series feels like it's going on forever, and I know I'm not really consistently posting data series specifically. I've been mixing it with the going on course videos, which I've actually had a lot of fun doing, as well as the interview that I put up with Max. It's been a little bit since I actually did the interview, and I just kept forgetting to edit and finish the video and finally upload it, but I'm glad I got that done and out of the way. I kind of went on a little backlog of all my stuff and tried to add in what I could. But if you want access to any of this stuff, any of the volumes, whether it's HCOBs, the policy letters, you can go to the Google Drive. If you want access to the Google Drive, you can email me at scientologeek@gmail.com. The email address is in the description, as well as the link to my Discord server. Now, if you want to go there and just hit me up, DM me, whatever, say hi, it doesn't matter to me. It'd be cool to have you on. So, if you want to join, feel free. If you don't, whatever, no biggie. And without further ado, let's get started. So we left off at review.
Having handled the thing or having done something about it, don't be too surprised to now and then find a lot more data suddenly emerge. In fact, it's almost usual now that you've started to handle something for more data to emerge. But you have to look it over. You have to say, well, have we handled it? Does this data confirm our why or doesn't it confirm our why? And that's all you do with that data. It's confirmatory. Sometimes you get data after the fact, after you've taken action. That's a review of your evaluation. When the data comes in after the fact, there's another step involved here. You review the situation, and all of a sudden you find out you were looking at a heck of a wrong why. One of the first things that will tell you operated on a wrong why is that the stats went down because it departed further from the ideal scene. You get injustices and that sort of thing coming out of wrong evaluations. So this is one of the reasons why you watch an evaluation in your line of country. You watch an evaluation after the fact. Was it true? So there's a confirmatory step which isn't mentioned in the data series. Was that the right why? The data series does not mention it's whether or not the stat goes up, but it's worse than that. Did you have the right why, or did you shoot down the wrong man? Now, anytime you find 30 people on staff being removed because they were suppressive, you know they had the wrong why because the percentages are wrong. It's just as mathematical as that.
What percentages are you talking about? Are you talking about 30 people on staff out of however many being removed, or are you referring to statistics? He doesn't elaborate on this. It's just as mathematical as that. What percentages?
If they've done that, then I can also assure you they've left the suppressive on the staff, and I can also assure you the guy that did it was suppressive.
So the person who did something wrong is suddenly suppressive and needs to be given heavy ethics.
Familiarity. We have a considerable amount of technology, which is administrative technology, which gives us an ideal scene and with which we must be familiar in order to evaluate and handle. We would have to be as practiced in this as in the building of armament factories or running navies or building toy balloons or trying to get housing furnished to the great unhoused, if that's what we're doing. You have to have some familiarity with the type of scene which you're handling.
We already said this. You don't need to have another section about it.
If you're good at this, you don't go on wasting your time and energy. You find the right why, you set it up, you make sure that it does get set up, that there's nothing more you have to do with it, and then that's that. Sometimes that takes quite a while, but note that if you're immediately pressing down this why all the rest of the way and you go on past the point where you corrected it, the thing is corrected. Now you're handling a no situation. If you didn't have evaluation, you would find yourself handling no situations and neglecting tough situations and not taking advantage of good situations. And this is how you get a bureaucracy, and this is how you get areas all overmanned. Clouding up a situation. Occasionally, you'll find a scene where in a person's or area's PR is greater to him than production. PR, personal PR, means more than production, and that's a characteristic of a suppressive.
Wait, what? Hold on, I gotta read that again. A person's or area's public relations is greater than production. Okay. So when they care more about their image than their production, then that means it's a characteristic of a suppressive.
They'll fog the situation up with big PR about how good it is so it can't be handled. So there's somebody sitting on those lines who's a bit suppressive. The why. You have to know when you don't have a why. It's very, very important to know you don't have a why. The end product of your evaluation could be said to be, what do we do about this? In other words, your recommendation could be said to be the end product. Actually, that's a short circuit. As far as your investigation and your data analysis is concerned, your first target, the why, if skipped, will defeat the end product of your evaluation. If that why is valid, then you can handle. A why is just this. It's the reason there's been a departure or a closer approach to or an exceeding of the ideal scene. What'll defeat you continuously is trying to find whys in no situations. You won't find a why. If you can't find a why readily, then you can possibly suspect that you have a no situation. A why by essence is something you can do something about.
Not always. I've already gone over this.
You have to have a recommended action on top of the why. The why is something which departed from, the reason it departed from, or the reason why it bettered the ideal scene or got closer to it. It's a why you can use and which will bring you a better scene. Therefore, the definition of a why is, it must be something which will permit you to bring about a better scene, not necessarily bring about the ideal scene. We might actually have a better scene than the ideal scene. We've described the ideal scene as so-and-so, and all of a sudden a why suddenly emerges, which actually makes the ideal scene look pale. Taking the ideal scene of a moderately affluent org, we might all of a sudden move into a situation where the ideal scene was quite something else, and we find out, how come all of a sudden Keokuk has made $8 million in the last 13 days? How come? We don't have an ideal scene anymore. Importance of having a why. We have a system of data handling which is superior to that of the intelligence organizations of today.
Huge claim. This is plainly where Hubbard is like, my stuff is better than you. My stuff is better than all secular ways of running an organization. Oh my god. I'm not surprised that he just spouted it like this.
I can say that because I know their systems, and they don't hold good.
Have you worked with them? What do you know about them, other than shit that you're pulling out of the crack of your ass?
Imagine somebody saying, well, we shouldn't pay any attention to Agent 622's reports from Kabongo because they're false.
Oh? I mean, how do you know that they're false?
That'd mean one had a turned agent or an agent that wasn't working. In other words, it isn't meaningless. It's not something you discard into the wastebasket. Now, a good intelligence officer doesn't always discard this. He says, well, it's false data, so therefore he's probably been taken over by the enemy. And he does make some sort of hit at it. But there are other outpoints that they would never have noticed. A datum is okay. This is the general think, not just of the generals, but this is general intelligence think. Of the data we receive, a great deal of it is not useful because it doesn't come from reliable observers. Well, that's a hell of an outpoint in itself. If an enemy battleship was seen on the coast, it wouldn't matter who saw it. Intelligence organizations would not pick it up unless it had been observed by a trained officer.
No one thinks that way. No one thinks that way today.
The town could not have been shelled because no reliable observer put a report in. There was no artilleryman to tell us whether or not blah, blah, blah.
Straw manning. He is just doing a shit ton of straw manning, and that is all he does. He just straw mans society, takes that straw man down, and then provides his way, which is better than the straw man. Even though the straw man isn't how society actually fucking runs.
So our system doesn't begin with, the Slobovians are building 85,000 panzer tanks, and that's by a reliable observer because Agent 462 has given us factual reports in the past, and it's confirmed by aerial observation and satellite pictures. So what? The intelligence would be, why are the Slobovians building this many panzer tanks? Knows us a lot more panzer tanks than Slobovians normally build. Because maybe Slobovians go in for a lot of building panzer tanks so they can call them T something or other and say they were invented in Slobogrov. Why? And we right away have a new brand of intelligence. Why? Why are they building these panzer tanks? One is the fact that they're building these panzer tanks. Is that an outpoint? Well, is it a lot more panzer tanks than they've built before? Is it a lot less? Did they build 1 million a year and they are only building 200,000 a year now? Now, the officer evaluating this hasn't any why. He hasn't anything, so he makes the supposition that the Slobovians are now easing off. Yeah, well, General, the Slobovians are now easing off. Yes, Mr. President, the Slobovians are now easing off and everything is going to be fine. The fool. What's the why? Where's the why? He assumed something. He didn't investigate further. He didn't look all over the place and find a whole lot of political ramifications and add it all up and so forth.
Hubbard, you don't figure out political ramifications when you provide your own solutions. It's aggravating. It's so aggravating. Everything in Hubbard land is just let me do things simplistically without getting a better idea of the topic. Such as, obviously, I mentioned this before, his stance on inflation and getting rid of income tax when he wrote his letter to Reagan. Again, Chris discussed this on his channel, Chris Shelton, with, what the heck was his name? John P. Capitalist and, Jeff Wassel. That was it.
Now, had he known about it, he would have looked from that data to more outpoints, and he would have found something or other. Building the tanks for Bongo Land so that they could knock out their neighboring country. Why? Why? Because they have a contract with Bongo Land to furnish them with tanks. He could have found something like that. You get these unwarranted conclusions because they don't have the mechanism of asking why.
People do this all the time. Intelligence organizations are not this shit.
And they don't investigate until they have an adequate why that explains it. When you've got a why, then you can handle.
Alright, we're going to stop off at the change. Let's see how many we have left. 3 pages. Alright, so this will go into the 3rd video. So, what have we covered today? Well, we have learned that you need to see if your data confirms your why or if it doesn't, and if it doesn't, you have the potential to have a wrong why. You need to see if stats have caused either an improvement towards an ideal scene or a departure from it. We've learned that if someone cares more about public relations than they do about production, then that's a characteristic of someone who's suppressive. I don't know how he can add that automatically. I mean, granted, it's not the best quality to have in someone running an organization. And I do agree that there's a lot of previous con artists and stuff like that who have just done more about their own PR than have about their organization, but I don't think that necessarily immediately makes someone suppressive. When it comes to the why, there will be times when you don't have a why, and this is what's called a no situation. I also learned that the why could be a negative or a positive thing. And then the final part is Hubbard just trashing intelligence. And this is the part, again, that bugs me to all hell. It's the fact that he acts like intelligence organizations don't ask further questions. And it's the dumbest fucking thing I have ever read. And the fact that he says, my stuff is better than all of yours. He acts like people who run intelligence organizations didn't even pass, like, 2nd grade. I don't know where he gets the cockiness and the confidence to be able to say these things and not think anybody's gonna call him out on his shit. I mean, obviously, he's dead now, so what's gonna happen to him? Nothing. David Miscavige didn't write it, so he doesn't have anything to worry about. But either way, if you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, hit the notification bell, share this with your friends and family, and let them know what Scientology really has when it comes to all of their doctrine and craziness that goes on. This whole channel's about all the craziness, and just, I want to be able to drive traffic to this channel, so if you can help do that, that would be greatly appreciated. I will talk to all of you later. See ya.